Well, this feels more like a little rowboat than a breakout room. But we'll make the most of it, right?
Oh,
I couldn't do what she's doing right now. Don't ask me to push the buttons.
Hi, Felicia.
All right.
Is Felicia in this group?
I'm
Yes.
always with you, James.
Oh yeah, I'm always delighted to have you, girl.
You too.
You're one of my heroes. You know that. I mean, sheroes, whatever you call yourself these days.
You're one of those for me.
Okay,
Father too.
great.
Okay.
Go.
Well, we've only got 28 minutes, so that's not enough time to do justice to this. So we might as well get in. Who's the scribe? You want me to scribe?
James, Katrina, Felicia, anybody?
It needs to be a COAC member.
Yeah, I think Felicia is a very good person. She's
Okay, I'll scribe.
Yeah, she's very good.
Okay, then I gotta turn off my camera so I can concentrate.
Yeah, no, he's very good.
Okay, I'll scribe.
So what the slide has in front of y'all is really just a bulleted recap of the 5 slides that we presented, and in your diversity plan, if you happen to have it, it would be it would start on page 5. They're all on page 5 with a little bit more written description. So is it that, you know, the questions posed were, do you agree with the list? Do you want to add, do you agree with the solutions? You want to add some items? I mean, it'd be a perfect opportunity for, like, if we miss something that you think is key to the success of DB contracting, what would you add? You know, we had things like fast pay. Example of something we didn't have on there would be like relaxing bonding requirements. So there's, you know, you can go as far as you want with it, but you know, and then fast pay was just one of them. You know, cultural competency. I mean, Belinda's words were pretty powerful to me, anyways. Just about, you know, creating an atmosphere where it's not all typical white people dominating the numbers.
I can't even get back to. Can you guys hear me?
Yep. I got you.
For some reason or another, I'm having a hard time getting back to my visual picture of you guys. I don't know what's going on with that. Okay, well, I'll start. If nobody else wants to start, I'll start. You know me.
Go, James.
You know, what concerns me is in terms of outreach and how we're marketing this project, is that it seems to be limited to those of us who traditionally know about construction, so on, et cetera. But I was hopeful that there would be a much broader, you know, marketing campaign about where we're going, what we're trying to do. I haven't seen that as of yet. You know, in this whole area of Northeast Portland, all the gentrification and all that has started, you know, there are people who are complicit in the downgrade of participation by minorities in all the economic aspects of what we do, i.e. U.S. Bank, Key Bank, all of the realtors that goes down the Williams Corridor. I'm not seeing any engagement in those groups who have benefited from historical racism and discrimination in our community. I don't see a liaison to try to bring those folk to helping the current capacity of Ray Moore and the joint venture to get this project done. I'm going to stop there. You all talk to me about that.
So James, I agree with you on that. And one of the things that I like to try and do is give avenues for those areas that are, I run into that too as a Latino contractor. People lack the trust that I'm going in there, going to do the job. So they man up a bunch of management types to know that they don't need to do that later. It's just a huge waste of time and it's a disrespect. So, kind of to your point, I would want to point out the lack of trust and the cash flow. Those two pieces actually help confidence out on the job site. If there was an understanding of the person's capacity without doing any kind of judgmental type of activity. So what a GC can do, a CMGC or GC can do, and the trust is maybe, go have a cup of coffee and understand who you're working with, and don't be making a judgmental position, on the pay side, if the GC if the project manager on the general contracting side is slow at turning in their bills regularly, that reflects back on the subcontractor. And I really have heartburn with that because as a small contractor, that's not fair to anybody. And in the retainage, what are we holding money for? What's it really doing? Is that to make sure somebody's actually able to do work or complete work? I don't think so. I think that's just a leveraging tool, and that needs to stop because a lot of these smaller shops don't have extra money laying around. They're spending money out of their personal bank accounts to pay for jobs when they get into situations, and that's completely unfair. So there is some level of relaxing that needs to happen on those areas, and we need to not feel like you're doing something wrong by asking them to give up on that because everybody else has got some different thing going on. Those two stand out. The cultural capacity, when I start looking at that, I got to talk about the job site and the way that they make people feel when they're out there working and they're demeanorizing each other and doing that whole business. And now we're talking trouble out on the job site, which leads to a further problem. So,
well, all right. Let me just, there's a couple of things here. I was talking about specifically making sure that the people who are tasked to performing the work, building the railroad, have to deal with all these external things around historical barriers, et cetera, because they got to build a railroad. Some of the burden for trying to talk about historical barriers and how that's collaborated with our community need to rest with folk who have benefited from these historical, when I talk about these banks, et cetera. So I want to make sure that Bill Bruce and Ray Moore are building a railroad, and they don't have to spend all their time talking about all these things that fold over into them, doing their work. Because after all, they're not historians, they're not social workers, they're mainly technical people that build railroads. So I want to make sure that the accountability for folk who have benefited for building these barriers have responsibility for addressing those. And I want to move right on over to cultural competency. Cultural competency, really, that's not Bill Bruce and Ray Moore's whole deal on cultural competency. I remember, I'm just going to tell you, Art, on the Interstate Light Rail, we in our dump trucks was rolling down Interstate Light Rail, and the white truckers were calling us the N-words. Here come these raggedy nigger trucks on the light rail, talking about cultural competency. Bill Bruce and those guys told them, we're going to shut this project down if we hear one more word about niggers, raggedy trucks on our interstate light rail. I'll never forget that as long as I live. They shut that down. You shut that down by exacting a penalty on those who want to practice racism on the job. I'm just going to be straight up about it.
I'm with you. I was, James, I was always the guy that was south of the border. And I got treated as such. And you know, so what my history, on my side, I'm looking at it. I just want to go to work. I don't want to get harassed. And you're absolutely right. You are absolutely right. And it's not fair. It doesn't feel good. And it's not going to make you feel good if somebody turns it into a joke. Bullshit.
Yeah.
So I'm with you on that.
You can't do that. Cultural competency means there's no toleration for disrespecting people based on their race, the color of their skin. That, you know, you can nip that in the bud right away by making sure that there's no tolerance for that kind of craziness on a job site. Straight up.
Bill?
So let's be the architect to this then. Let's change that.
Bill, I just would like to acknowledge Miss Hennessy has her hand up.
I felt like I was failing as facilitator, and I have to confess, Tawana, I'm not sure I know how to pronounce your name properly, so forgive me, Tawana.
No, that's correct. And some important things have already been said. One of the things that I wanted to double click on was the bonding, especially for women and minority-owned businesses. They are most times are already experiencing discrimination in the capital markets, and so they don't have access to capital and bonding and insurance and things like that. So that is, for me, that's a big barrier, and it kind of shuts the door on women and minority-owned businesses.
Thank you. Katrina?
So Tawana kind of talked about it, but one of the barriers that I see is that some of the smaller companies with regard to trusting and cash flow and basically the lack of trust, several companies don't have their own HR department. They don't necessarily have a harassment policy, anti-harassment policy. And I know that that falls under technical assistance, but if we could front load that to the front, so that we could get a broader audience of folks that are available to bid for projects.
Thank you.
So Bill, in Seattle, you know, they had for lack of a better word, they had a hotshot crew that would go out to talk to contractors who had issues with back office issues, whether it be their taxes, whether it be their accounting, their billing, whatever. And they were on call, just like we have an emergency response team to go out and deal with issues relative to whatever might come out. You know, it was a troubleshooting crew, for lack of a better word. And you know, you had competent people in the community who were accountants, who were lawyers, who were whatever, the professionals, who would be a resource to minority contractors out in the field. And you had a 24-hour turnaround in order to address those problems. It wasn't like you said something and nobody paid attention to you, but they had to go out and assess the problem, come back with a format of what was going on and propose a solution. Those things are critical to a contractor that's in distress, if you follow what I'm saying. You might want to talk about a have gun will travel troubleshooting team to be able to address those issues with contractors in trouble. You feel me?
Okay. Yeah.
Feel me?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Stefan?
It's Stephen.
Stephen? Sorry.
Steve. Sorry about that. So going through the diversity plan, I see a real focus on COBID certified firms, but we all know that most minority-owned firms are actually not COBID certified. So I'd love to know what kind of engagement is going to be done to embrace those folks to opportunities for this project. And then also, I think in the conversation, we make a lot of assumptions about what some of the things and the barriers that folks face. I think there's an opportunity to maybe do a survey and maybe work with a third party that actually interviews, 20, 30, 40, 50 Black contractors, Latinx contractors around the state, and really get it from the horse's mouth as far as what the barriers are. I don't want to make any assumptions around people not having cash or people not being able to manage HR. I'd love to really cut to the chase. I think trust is a really, really big issue. And trust has nothing to do with, someone running a business. It has everything to do with the difference, I think, between outreach and relationships. Outreach is something you do to someone. A relationship is something you do with someone. And so, I think there's two opportunities there around engagement with minority-owned firms.
Thank you. Art, back to you.
Yeah, I kind of want to echo his statement about minority-owned businesses that don't have co-bid certifications. You're basically knock somebody out like me that wants to go support, growth in minority activities, and because I've broken the dollar amount, it has impacted the cash flow of two of my companies based on the minority, which is good on one hand, but it's really hard to, prove that a contractor is doing. And why I say that is, let's just say Raymore on this one project, he goes over those dollar amounts, and they'll lose their minority status through COVID, and it's not really helpful that way for a company when we're trying to promote, growth with minority firms. And if they get to their cap and they change, then what do we do next? It's not going to be fair for Raymore moving forward. So I'm talking from my personal experience, and I would like to see some thought go into that recognizes and continuing the development and passing down that opportunity to other businesses. So there's success in the history of firms that have made it and continue to do business in the industry.
Thanks, Art. That's good. James?
Yeah, hey, Bill, oftentimes I have to remind Jeff Moreland that his name is Jeff, not Jesus. And I just want to make sure you guys understand that you all have a railroad to build. And, the expectation for all the stuff that they're laying on you is not fair. You have a railroad to build. At the end of the day, when it's all said and done, you've got to understand what the market is, the parameters around the market to get this railroad built, and for them to put undue responsibilities and or parameters around how you achieve this job, to me, is asinine, to say the least. So I say that to say this, if you have a minority contractor who cannot perform outside of the covering of the blanket of what you all are providing via the DBA program, you're doing them a disservice. So the goal is to get a minority contractor who can perform in whatever market that is competitive in our real world existence. And I think you know that because you've done that about every time I've seen you do stuff. You prepare a minority contractor that can survive and can operate based upon the merits of their performance on the job, and the ability to do work, whether you have a DBE program or not, private, public, or whatever the hell there might be. So that's the beauty of watching how you guys work and the way you all are performing, is that in spite of all the racism, discrimination, and everything that has occurred over the years, when they come through Raymore and they come through your system, you know that they can perform outside of anything else out there. So I just want you all to stick with that principle and make sure that whoever is outreach, that you don't give them some kind of crutch or handicap that ultimately, when you go away, they can't survive. To me, that's very, very important. You can feel me on that.
Yep.
Bill, I just want to acknowledge we have 8 minutes left, so I'm going to pull up the questions one last time.
And while you're doing that, Amber, I wanted to interject that I know Felicia is our scribe, but I just wanted to give her space if she had anything to add as a COAC member to the conversation to be able to do that.
Thank you, Shelley. No, I think that everybody's covering. I'm just trying to keep track of the notes. But if you need me to report out, I've been able to take notes on what Stephen, Katrina, Tawana, Art, and James have been talking about.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Felicia.
And maybe just let me add back that there's none of it's foreign. There's nothing that surprised me out of all that. So, and I've got good notes as well. So,
and I think if they all fall under the 5 buckets, honestly, that's already up here under barriers. It's just providing more clarity around solutions is what I heard from the people that spoke. And I wanted to make sure that Deb or Carolyn, if they have anything they want to add too.
You know, I don't want to monopolize this meeting because, you know, I'm good at that. But I got to tell you, Bill, and you guys are downplaying the significance of the green sheet impact. I know, Bill, you created that thing, but I don't know if people really understand how important that green sheet really is in terms of where we're trying to go with minority participation. I don't know if people really understand that. The green sheet piece, you know, I could talk to you about it, but I'm going to shut up, Amber, but I want people to make sure they understand that this green sheet is a unique and dynamic aspect that happens nowhere else on the planet relative to how we use minorities and how we use the science and how we strategically make sure people are participating in projects. So I can shut up now, I can go down the road on it, but at the end of the day, you guys got to make sure that green sheet thing is prominent in the discussion, how we move forward.
So I think that answers, that is a tease up for this last question, which is, I'm assuming then you would like a significant amount of time deliberating and talking about that. Yes?
Oh, absolutely, because historically, the minority participation has been a social work, a social science, some sort of benevolent thing that we're doing for the good of the world order or whatever the hell you might think. It's never been in the context of being efficient, effective, and making money for everybody and trying to put it into a context of us being critical to the mission of achieving the efficiency and the effectiveness of the goal of building the railroad. And with Bill and what they've done with the green sheet, they've taken the brick and mortar aspect of being efficient, effective, and more importantly, that's what business is about, whether people forget it or not, is making money and being profitable. They've taken that and overlaid that over to the DBE element of what we're trying to do. And it is phenomenal. It tells everybody why we should be doing diversity and what it really means in terms of the outcome and the effectiveness of how we build the railroad. Y'all just need to know that.
Katrina?
Hey, you have your hand raised, but have you already made your point?
One more thing to say about number 4 for future topics. So when we're looking at contractors, I feel like it's important to make sure that on the technical assistance side, that there is a solid plan in place for, let's say, heavy equipment operators. What is the plan in place if when the ratio is not 1-to-1 to be able to keep somebody that might be green safe? So what kind of support can we give the contractors to load that in when they're bidding, and so they understand that process, so that we're not sitting down the road with folks saying that it was unsafe or we can't have somebody on there, and that we and I know that part of that's going to be the apprenticeship side, which we will educate, but when we're looking at the front side of that, that's a big piece to make sure that we, or what that looks like for folks.
That's a good comment. That's a good comment. Yep.
It's really good, Katrina.
Still got my hand up. I still got my hand up. It's James Posey. I know I'm monopolizing this conversation.
I know. So James, can you hang on for 1 second? Is there anybody else that wants to chime in prior to us going to James?
No,
Go.
I can tell you, ain't nobody else wants to chime in. Nobody wants to say anything but me.
I just,
So I'm gonna say everything. Hey,
so,
listen, guys, we need to incentivize positive outcome. We need to incentivize positive outcome. We need to make sure there's incremental incentive for people who do the right thing for the right reason and achieve results. Build that in at every aspect of what we're trying to do, whether Webb is doing a good job on his, whatever the hell he's doing out here as a project, whether Bill is doing a good job, whatever the flaggers or have a low accident rate. You got to build in incremental incentives for everybody to really reinforce the positive work that they're doing. You got to do that. Don't take it for granted. We're already behind the 8 ball. We need to incentivize everything that works positive or to help us meet our goals. Let's do that. Please, let's do that. If you all don't do that, I know we're not serious.
All right, I'm going to pull up the questions one last time.
We've got about 1 minute.
Okay. Do y'all think they missed anything? You feel like everything falls in these 5 buckets? Closing remarks, anything?
Yeah, I'm gonna say something. Y'all know I'm gonna say something, don't you?
Closing remarks.
Listen, do not mess with the folk who are doing this work. We've already chosen the subcontractors to do this work. Don't throw no sand in the gears. If the consultants and whoever else are supporting the agenda around these contractors who have been tasked with this tremendous work, don't throw no sand in the gears. If you can't be a positive influence, then don't have no influence at all. Go back door, go talk to your mama, or go talk to anybody. But let's see where you all can show affirmatively in all the expressions of where we're trying to go, that you're supporting the mission that's